lords and ladies of the realm. It is I, EmmightySofia, here to break down for you the latest episode of Game of Thrones. We are on Season 5, Episode 4, Sons of the Harpies. So spoiler alerts before we dive into the mad thick of things, as I shall be bearing all in this review. And just so you guys know, at long last, my Avengers Age of Ultron review is up. You can find a link to that in the description. I have a new original song that is also up by the name of Dance Royale, a link down below as well. And coming very soon, if not here already, a full review of the first season of Netflix's Daredevil. So there's just a cornucopia of fun things happening here, but let us focus, of course, on the episode at hand, Sons of the Harpies. So, and I actually took some notes, like a good human being, which I don't always. And since as of my beginning to film this vlog, nobody has posted any reviews of any kind, so I usually try to like fact check if I have the time before I review to make sure that the information I am conveying is correct. So I will rely upon you guys to lovingly and kindly correct me in the comments if I say something that is erroneous and wrong, and knowledge and enlightenment will be shared amongst all of mankind. So let's do that. At any rate, if I was to kind of sum this episode up in a single word, I would personally use the word uprising, because we are seeing that at pretty much every corner of Westeros right now, what with the Faith Militant that has kind of been sent out by Cersei Lannister to take down the Tyrells in King's Landing. And then we also see that, of course, with the Sons of the Harpy, which is the title of this episode and culminates in a very controversial event that is more open-ended than I thought it would be. And then we also see the Sand Snakes in Dorne being recruited by Lady, now I actually wrote down the pronunciation of this because I struggled hardcore with it last week, and it is Ilaria? That's how I wrote it down, so I'm gonna go for that. But yeah, so some of the main stuff, the Faith Militant, Sons of the Harpy, Sand Snakes, and other shenanigans that are currently underway. And then, of course, not to be forgotten is Stannis' impending move on the north, which is currently being held by the Boltons, where Sansa is currently stuck, betrothed to Ramsay Snow. And we come to discover, if we didn't realize it already, that, in fact, Peter Baelish Littlefinger is betting on Stannis to take the throne. And that is kind of what all of his maneuvering of late has been about. If, in fact, his confiding in Sansa is revealing the truth of what he wants. At any rate, so, uprising is occurring all over the place, and we also see a lot of interesting political subterfuge and decisions and temptations and discoveries and revelations. I mean, it was such a diverse and fun episode. If I'm not mistaken, there were parts of it that actually felt a lot like, say, The Princess Bride. And let me explain to you why. I think part of it is the setting of Dorne and the lands across which Jaime and Bronn are traveling. For some reason, it reminds me a hell of a lot of The Princess Bride, and that makes me really happy because I love that film, and I don't know why. I mean, I think just all the sword play, granted, it's far bloodier and less filled with the nostalgic joy that comes with The Princess Bride, but it was just a lot of fun. There was a lot that happened in this episode, and it moved really, really fast. I mean, it was just about, I think it clocked in at around 50 minutes, and I was pretty stunned when it cut to the credits. That was not okay, because here am I, and now maybe this is clear to all of you, but I could not actually tell if Grey Worm and Sir Barristan went down. Are they in the afterlife now? or shall one of them survive? Either of them? I have no idea. So you can tell me what you think, or if I'm just being silly and trying to cling on to false hope, because while there were quite a few potentially mortal blows that were dealt, Grey Worm swooped in at the last freaking minute and saved Sir Barristan's head. So there are some possibilities. They are laying amongst just an entire hall of shallow graves, themselves looking quite not alive. But at the same time, I still have hope, and I don't know what exactly the aftermath of all of this is going to be, especially what with Tyrion and Jorah Mormont on their merry way down to Meereen. There's a lot that's in motion here, so I will do my best to encompass everything that has occurred in the episode. Let me know what you thought about it all, what worked for you in the episode, what didn't as a whole. I really enjoyed it. I found myself talking at the screen, which is something that I do when I am particularly engaged, and that I most certainly was. So let us begin by talking about the events of Dorne. So down yonder, we see that Ilaria. Okay, yes, I remember why I was struggling with that name so much. I kept thinking it sounded like malaria, and I wasn't so into that. So Ilaria. That is how I shall refer to her. Ilaria comes to see the daughters of Oberyn, whose names are Tyene, Oberyn, and Nym. I got those names. I feel so proud of myself. Usually I have to have heard a character's name in at least 3 different episodes before it even starts to take root in the soil of my mind. So Tyene, Oberyn, and Nym, they've all been taught and militarized by Oberyn. I believe that Tyene is she's the only daughter of Oberyn and Ilaria, if I'm not mistaken, and the other 2 are from other mothers. But Ilaria comes to them saying that either it's going to be the way of, oh my gosh, what was the name? Doran. So Doran and peace, or her way and war. And they all make very clear in their own unique ways the fact that they are committed to the task of seeking vengeance for the death of Oberyn Martell. And it is quite dramatically punctuated with the throw of a spear into the skull of the man who illegally ferried Jaime Lannister to Dorne. So they're certainly, well, I would say sending the message. Nobody has seen that yet, but we as the audience have witnessed their promise to go ham and declare war themselves. So that is a very exciting and scary development. And, you know, we have Myrcella, I believe is the name of the of Cersei's daughter, who is in Dorne currently. And while we have seen her in seasons past, it's been a really long time since we've actually encountered her or seen her face. So I'm kind of like, as much as I don't want her to be the subject of the violence that is brewing over Oberyn's death, as much as I don't want to see that atrocity committed, I'm not super emotionally invested in her, and Cersei herself is making a lot of stupid decisions, and by proxy I'm kind of like, the ship Lannister is slowly but surely sinking, and I don't know how I feel. Again, it's those delightful moral ambiguities that make Game of Thrones just the experience of a lifetime. So that is currently underway, and we see Jaime and Bronn making their way downtown, walking fast, and they're homebound, except not. They hope to be homebound someday, and they get to have a nice little fireside chat with some snake kebabs over the fire, talking about how they would like to die. And we see that while Bronn has the spirit of, you know, I've had an exciting life, I'd love to die a boring death, Jaime is so focused on the end game of saving his niece, Myrcella, for Cersei, and talking in very vague terms about wanting to be with the woman he loves and make right and blah, blah, blah. Does Bronn know what's going on behind closed doors? Perhaps so. But at any rate, he makes for a very fun and swashbuckling companion, and they make pretty quick work of the Dorn soldiers that they encounter along the way. And of course, they try to do this whole, like, oh, we are but travelers washed ashore, and send us in the direction that we may go in order to bring ourselves back home, blah, blah, blah. And then Jamie had to ruin their perfectly good story by saying that they thought the sharks would get them, and whoopsie daisy, there are no sharks in the area, so that is clearly a problem. That, and they don't lay down their weapons, but all of this leads to a very exciting fight sequence that culminates in Jamie freaking grabbing, well, I say grab, but he allows the spear to, he blocks the blow that would have been lethally dealt to him with his not hand. So he wins. And I tweeted a really stupid thing earlier when I was watching the episode that sometimes having only a single hand in combat can give you the upper hand. Thank you very much. I'll be here all week. So bad, so bad. I'm so sorry to assault your mind with that terrible pun. But that was really cool. It was really cool to get to see Braun's training pay off and to see how Jamie improvises in light of this disability, as it were. Which it really is not, and turns out to work very much in his favor, because we have seen fights previously where somebody grabs a blade in order to avoid having it slice through their neck or other places. But in this way, I mean, it's so powerful because we see Jamie is surprised that it's actually happening and then just goes right on through with it. And it's awesome. So that was really cool to behold. Lots of good action in this episode, that's for sure. I think one of my favorite components. So let's scurry on back over to King's Landing, where Circe is making good on her paranoia about and disgust for Marjorie Tyrell by speaking to the High Sparrow and making a deal with the not devil. And I have to say that the High Sparrow is he's a chill dude. I love the guy. But now, if I'm correct, the Faith Militant is under him, and he recognizes that while their methods are unsavory, again, it is popping the boil of hypocrisy in society, essentially. That's kind of the way he sees what's going on and what is being carried out in his name, and as part of the religious sect of which he is the head. So, all very problematic stuff, and we see quite a few dramatic shows of the Faith Militant going at it. They are clearing the pipes. They are ransacking the brothels, pulling out the hypocrites, ripping people around naked, what have you. They're bursting open the barrels of alcoholic spirits, and I mean, there is both blood in the streets as well as, I mean, I love that shot with the, with all the beer or whatever it was that's just pouring down the staircases, and it's almost like sort of symbolizing bloodshed as the Faith Militant is strategically and mercilessly moving their way through the town and cleansing it of all ills, all the everything. And that ultimately leads to the arrest of Sir Loris, Marjorie's brother. She promptly goes to her fair king and demands to have him released. And poor Tommen, just such an innocent wee little babe, just, oh, that really sucks. You think my mom? Do you think that, really? I mean, should I talk to her? Should I try? I mean, bless the lad for wishing to avoid violence at all costs, but he, as of yet, has no idea. He is completely and always unsure of himself, and when he goes to speak to the High Sparrow about the case of Sir Loris, well, the guy is praying, and his men are surrounding his temple. And there is definitely the opportunity for his, for King Tommen's soldiers to whack these guys down and go do what needs to be done. He is the king, he is the law, and so on and so forth. And yet he still feels so walled in by a desire to keep peace, not knowing when to strike out and when to withhold, and only ever withholding because he's just a boy. And as much as he wants to make his lightning hot wife happy, it's going to be difficult if he's not willing to put a few lives to rest. And we see that poor Marjorie, her plan is starting to backfire. You know, she's trying to plant the seed in Tommen's mind that his mother's presence is only ever going to be a shadow cast over him, and he tries to urge her in the direction of Casterly Rock. And now the war is truly begun, and the real housewives of King's Landing are fighting dirty, okay? So definitely the first of a likely many poor decisions made on Cersei's part that is going to result in a lot of people getting killed, or worse. Killed or worse. I do in fact mean that. And she's also whittling away at the small council and starting to bring in some of her own allies, as is evidenced with the High Sparrow. And it's all very shady and not good and not great, because we see that Cersei is reacting very emotionally and is doing everything that she can to secure her own power without having any other end in sight, and trying to undermine and ultimately oust the Tyrells completely. We'll see how that works out for her exactly, but let's shimmy on over in a totally different direction to the Wall, where Jon Snow is currently serving as Lord Commander and is being pulled in the direction of going to join Stannis in storming the North and taking back what is his. Now, we also get a little sexy encounter with the Red Priestess, Lady... Oh my gosh, I have so many... Lady Melisandre, yes. There's a lot of female M names. Marjorie, Marcella, and all of that jazz. But she pulls a few moves on him and offers to show him the way of life. Tries to break down this notion of you know, standing and keeping the wall, and rather saying that there's only the wall between life and death, and making all of these very big, lofty, conceptual ideas and trying to plug in emotions to those, and in so doing manipulate Jon. But he remains steadfast on the basis that he is still in love with his Lady Fair, who was lost in the war against the Night's Watch and the Wildlings. So, you know, he gets a little get-out-of-jail-free card from spending some hanky-panky time with the Red Priestess, who confirms that something that many people have shared with Jon in times past, that he knows nothing. Or was that really just Ygritte's thing? Because now, like, I look back and it seems like I can remember any person saying that to him, because it's just become so ingrained in the fan community and it's just thrown around all the time. But that was kind of Ygritte's main thing, that you know nothing, Jon Snow. And that is precisely what the Red Priestess tells him as she is on her way out and buttoning up her dress. So, woohoo! This lady is fronting on his dead lover's territory. Not entirely okay. But definitely curious to see if Jon remains firm in his position and what he does as far as making sure the Night's Watch has enough men and making sure that Stannis gets what he needs. So he's in this position of power where he's trying to make all of these calls and ensure that justice is done, at once feeling the pressure of avenging his family, with the Boltons being in their place, and lots of tension and stresses for this man to face. But he is doing the best that he can. knowing nothing forever and always. So that, of course, leads us to the north, where Sansa and Littlefinger currently are, and it's interesting to see how far Sansa herself has come, because once upon a time, that little sister was itching to get out of Winterfell, to go be at King's Landing, and she was betrothed to the prince, and oh, but the fairy tale was so short. So swiftly and brutally ended, and now that she is back home, I think that she has far more respect for her family, the family that she has lost, and, you know, believing herself really to be the only remnant. Now she is home and very strategically but dangerously placed, as we are unsure what Stannis' move against the Boltons is going to look like, how that's going to play out. Is she going to have to marry Ramsay Snow, sorry. And she discusses all of these things with Peter, who informs her that he is being called to King's Landing. He's got to go do it. Has to make sure that nobody out there is suspecting him of any ill. So I'm sure that he won't be terribly pleased to find out what's happened to his brothels. They've had a few sieges laid upon them, but he plants yet another tender kiss on Sansa, his niece, and assures her that all shall be well, and that although she is in the presence of a dangerous man, even dangerous men can be outmaneuvered. And he, of course, reveals that he is standing by Stannis, and that ultimately all of this is geared towards ousting the people who took out her family, getting justice, and ultimately getting Stannis onto the Iron Throne. So the bigger picture is starting to come into play here. All of the subplots that are building to whoever is going to fill that power vacuum. And while, yes, there is King Tommen, there's still a vacuum because he doesn't know what he's doing. He is just a child, and it's just a title, really. He's not truly the one making the calls. He is being barred at every angle. Every time that he tries to stand up and exercise his kingly authority, well, there are other things that come into play. And so it's really fascinating to kind of see where everybody stands and what everybody is vying for in this world. And oh man, do I hope the best for our poor Sansa. But that, of course, leads us to the happenings down at Meereen, and we see that Tyrion has been kidnapped by Jorah, who wants to use him as his scapegoat and become reinstated in the good graces of Dany. And that all goes a little bit, well, not south for him per se, but when he comes to realize that, whoops, he and Tyrion are actually on the same team, it's kind of more embarrassing than anything else. And I love that scene on the boat where Tyrion is just laying it all out like, yeah, I know what's going on. I've been drunk most of my life, but I can pick these little details together and put them, oh, would you look at that? I know exactly who you are and what you want, and now here's what I want. Just a little bit of wine so we can take a nap until he gets to see the queen and tell her, hey, I'm going to be your advisor and you are going to sit on the Iron Throne. Let's do this thing. But Jorah just ain't having that. So it's really interesting to see these characters coming together on very unlikely terms, and that, of course, makes us wonder what's going to become of Varys, who, as far as we know, has no idea what is transpiring at the moment. But we go to Dany's quarters, and she's having a nice conversation with Sir Barristan about her brother Rhaegar, I believe, who liked to go out and perform like a minstrel and then bestow his riches upon other minstrels or orphanages or getting super crunk that night, you know. So it's kind of a fun story and dip back into a part of her family of which she was not aware. All of this leading into the all-out war between Dany's men and the Sons of the Harpy. And seriously epic battle in the tunnel with Grey Worm and ultimately Sir Barristan. I mean, good lord. are they reckoning forces? And I really hope that they made it out alive. But I really don't know. Because the way that things end, they kind of look like they're kind of dead. And I think that's the whole point. To get us anxious for what's coming and whether they make it or not. But yeah, it was a really interesting place to leave off. And of course, this comes right after Danny is meeting with one of the citizens of Marine, who is asking that they bring back the fighting pits, because this whole war that has been brewing is due to the fact that the former slaves and slave masters now have no relationship to one another. And that lack of definition is actually breeding even more violence. The kind of violence that Danny thought she was putting to rest once and for all. And that's the crazy thing about her position, is it's not just about liberating people, it is about managing them and keeping the greatest possible peace. It's certainly not ideal to think that keeping peace necessitates the return of these exploiting relationships, but, well, we'll see. Is it too late for her or not? But yeah, we're left on this ambiguous note, ambiguous as far as whether Danny is going to try to completely change the social order that she thought that she had already transformed for the better, and how Tyrion's arrival is going to play into that. We don't know how long it's going to take for him and Jorah to get there, but we know that they are going to have a little bit of a dragon encounter, so they best be ready for that. But yeah, very full, very brisk and fast-paced episode. We get to see a lot of fascinating parts of different characters, including Stannis and his daughter, which was just like, oh my gosh, rip my heart open moment. Like, we've seen him just in this unswerving, unwavering approach to the Iron Throne. And we get to take a little break from that to see his relationship with his daughter and the love that he has for this girl, whom any other father, much less a man of power, probably wouldn't bother trying to save. And it adds a new facet of Stannis's personality, which perhaps might sway some of us who are a little bit turned off to his militant takeover of power. We see that he loves this girl who she offers him no political or military advantage. She is simply his daughter, Princess Shireen. And it was such a beautiful moment. And I really, really love that, and getting to see that piece of Stannis in the midst of all that is going on. But yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Leave all your thoughts in the comments, and I would be more than happy to take a peek at them whenever I possibly can. So watch my other videos if you want. Share your predictions for other things that may transpire in the season. And once again, thank you so much for joining me on this marvelous adventure. And as always, I will be back before you know it.